In all my experience as a recruitment consultant and training recruitment consultants, I think one of the biggest challenges that we face is taking things at face value, not pushing back at clients, prospects, candidates, and taking what they say at face value. And the thing is, if we take things at face value, then we don't really have an ability to add value. And if we're not adding value, what are we there for? So what we're going to get from the end of this video is you'll have the ability to firstly understand why we tend to back off and take things at face value, and also how to stop it, how to actually start probing and getting to what people really mean by what they say. Because once you understand what people really mean, rather than what you think they mean or what you think they ought to mean, then you can start to solve their problems. And once you're able to solve their problems consistently, you'll start to earn the money you really deserve, because you'll deserve it. If this topic is the kind of thing you'd like to see more of, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and that way you will always get an update of the weekly videos that are coming out. This channel is all about recruitment skills. So if you're in search, if you're in temp contract, this is the right channel for you. Hit the subscribe button and let's get cracking on. As well as training more than 50,000 recruitment consultants, I've also built my own desk. I built it from scratch, and the first year I did more than £800,000 of revenue. And one of the main reasons for that was that I was willing to probe and to push a little bit further and to find out what people really meant, what they really wanted, what they really wanted to avoid. And in order to do that, I had to accept that I would feel a little bit uncomfortable, and also that the clients or candidates or prospects that I was talking to would also go through a stage of feeling a little bit uncomfortable with things. And that's where the real value is. Because in order to help people effectively, in order to get better fees, in order to get more assignments, you've got to be able to do things differently to everybody else. Because if you're the same as everyone else, why would they pay you differently or treat you differently? And that's kind of what this video is all about. It's not just about the skills, it's also about the mindset to a degree. So let me start with that. Why is it that people aren't willing, get nervous, get apprehensive, start having horrible hallucinations about all the bad things that will happen if they push further, if they probe, if they delve into what people really mean? It's largely because we don't feel confident in our own status. We don't feel like we're adding value. We take a step back, like, oh, I don't want to push too far because I might upset them. I don't want to kind of push things a little bit because, you know, they might push back, or they might get upset, or, you know, they might not go with me. It's even in there in the language. I don't want to push. Why is it pushing to ask a polite question? Why is it pushing to try and find out what people want or what they mean? Just the language that people use tells you pretty much everything about how they perceive their own status, as opposed to the status of the client or the candidate. And that's the first mindset change. If you're not focused on helping this person, if you don't go into a conversation thinking, okay, how can I best help this candidate? How can I best help this prospect? How can I help this client? What have I got to get from this job order so that I can really do the job well and help my client and deliver for the candidates? What have I got to do in terms of this interview prep, or in terms of this debrief, so that I can really make sure this works for everybody? Those are the questions that will really help you change your viewpoint on what it is that you're doing. You're not digging, you're not pushing, you're helping. You're asking questions so that you can know more, so that you can do more. And that's kind of the secret, because if you know more, you can do more. And you can't know more without doing your research and asking your questions and finding out the stuff that most people don't, or won't, or can't. That's absolutely crucial. So go into these conversations, whether it's a cold call, taking a job order, doing interview prep, doing debrief, negotiating a close on a deal, whatever it may be. go into these conversations with the mindset that what you're trying to do is help people get the best resolution, help people get what they really want, help people avoid what they really don't want. Because once you've got that mindset, you're not digging, pushing, being awkward. You're inquisitive, helpful. That's a massive shift. That's chalk and cheese, as we say in England. The difference between trying to help and trying to push and cajole is all the difference in the world. It's the difference between night and day. Is that making sense so far? So if it is, fantastic. Hit the like button and we'll dive straight into the actual skills part, the content. The first crucial part of being effective in finding out what people are really wanting, in probing and getting real information out, isn't the open question. I mean, yes, open questions are useful. You know, how, what, why, where, when, who. Good stuff. But what actually matters more than that is how you set the question up and then how you follow up on the answer. So let me first of all explain the setup. If you just ask an open question, you must have had this experience, I know I have, where you ask a perfectly good open question and people just look at you as though you're made of cheese. They kind of go, I don't know. Or they give you some sort of superficial answer and you know that they've just not engaged their brain before they started speaking. You know, you ask somebody, well, you know, what are you looking for in the ideal candidate? And they go, well, they've got to have a bit of experience, they've got to have this and they've got to have that. And you just know they're not really telling you what they want. They're just reciting the first few lines of the first few bullet points of the job spec. And you just think, oh God, it's a perfectly good question. It just hasn't been set up to get a perfectly good answer. And a perfectly good question will very rarely be guaranteed to get you a perfectly good answer unless you set it up properly. The setup is what comes before the question and it's what actually makes it work. So let me give you an example of a setup. The question is, what are you looking for in an ideal candidate? That's fine. The setup to that might be just thinking back to people you've had in this role in the past, or you know, people you've worked with, colleagues you've worked with who've been absolutely brilliant at this role, or alternatively people who've been absolutely dreadful at it. You know, because I'm sure you've had some nightmares in the past. Just thinking about what kind of person would be a success in this role, or what kind of person would be an absolute nightmare in this role. What kind of skills or experience will make them really good? What would the ideal candidate be for you? Now, here's a little rule. Long setup, short question, long answer. Most people do the opposite. They ask these long-winded questions with 6 or 7 subclauses in them, and if you actually see them transcribed, they're about a paragraph long, and at the end of it, somebody goes, I don't know really. But if you have a long setup, and that setup began with thinking about, or if you remember, or just imagining for a second. And what you're actually doing is you're engaging somebody's brain about the subject before you ask them about the subject. So you're asking them to click into their memory or go into their imagination or go into their vision of what they want, and then you're asking them to describe it. It's like asking somebody to read a chapter in a book before you ask them about the chapter in the book, which would seem obvious and make sense. But for some reason we don't do it in conversation, in a sales context, in a recruitment context. We do it socially all the time. It's just second nature in a social context. Oh, do you remember when we were on holiday and we went down to the beach, and that's on the right hand side, there's that bar on the corner there? What was the name of that guy behind the bar? That's a long setup to a short question. What was the name of the guy behind the bar? That's the sort of stuff we do socially all the time. But for some reason, when we're in a sales context, we just kind of forget all about it. You ask your open question, and what you then get is their answer. Now, what a lot of people are taught to do when you get somebody's answer, firstly, you know, you obviously write down the information and you acknowledge it. And then what a lot of people have been trained to do is either to stop there, where you just get the information and you acknowledge it and then that's it. which means that you never get down below the surface level. Or they're trained to paraphrase, which is the process where you take what somebody says and you turn it into what they would have said if they were as clever as you are, which is just ludicrous if you think about it in that context for a second. So rather than paraphrasing, try parrot phrasing. You repeat back what somebody actually said, their actual words, and then you ask them for some clarification. So you repeat back what they say, parrot phrase what they said. So they say, oh, I'm looking for somebody that knows how to do this. Fantastic. You said you're looking for someone that knows how to do this. How do you mean? Or in what way? Or how would you know that they can? Or does that make sense? You're just probing. You're probing to find out what they actually mean. So the process is really simple. You set up, you ask an open question, you parrot phrase what they said, and then you ask them a probing question, a precision question, to get more information off them. That making sense so far? And once you've parrot phrased back to them and asked them an extra question, asked them the probing question, you can continue with that process. You can either go back to something in the original answer, or you can probe about the answer they've given you to your precision question. And what you're doing is drawing out more and more clarity, more and more information about what they mean and what they want to avoid, which is at least as important. But here's something important that most people don't realize. If you think of this as some kind of sales technique, you'll miss the real point and the real power. Because the real point and the real power is that it's not just you that's getting clarity, it's also them. Because most people are so busy living, they're so busy doing the job, they don't get time to think about what the job actually is or could be. People are so busy recruiting that they don't get a chance to think about what kind of person they should be recruiting for what kind of role. They're just filling the slots in the org chart. So that process of set up the question, ask an open question, empathise, which is where you just acknowledge what they said. Oh, I'm with you. Oh, that makes sense. Oh, gotcha. I understand. Ah, okay. And then precision, which is where you probe and ask for more detail and more explanation. It's just an iterative process. You just do it again and again and again until you get a real understanding, and they get a real understanding of what it is that they want, what it is that they need, what it is that they're trying to avoid. And that same process applies whether it's a prospecting call, taking a job order, interview prep, interview debrief, negotiation, whatever it may be. Because if you take things at face value, you don't have the ability to add value. Now, one of the things that I'm conscious of with YouTube is that you don't get a lot of chance to delve into a massive amount of detail about the how on these videos. So what I've got is a program called the Billings Accelerator, which is a 7-day program, but it's for £7. There's a link down in the caption below. If you want more information about it, just click on the link, and yes, it's £7 for 7 days. I'm charging you £1 for each day of the coaching, just so that you can actually dive in and really get into some depth. Also associated with the program, there's also a Facebook group that's associated with it. There's follow-ups, there's tools, there's scripts, there's all sorts of stuff associated with it, but it's down there. Have a look at it, see what you think. Now, in terms of this technique that we're talking about, these processes will only work if you've got your head in the right place. And your head needs to be in the mindset of, I'm trying to help. I'm here to add some value. You're not there to sell. You're not there to take a job order. You're not there to prep for the interview. You're not there to whatever it may be. You're there to find out how you can best help. And then you can go off and do it. And that mindset shift is so crucial. I cannot emphasize it enough. Yes, the technique will work on its own. Yes, the technique will allow you to get more information. Yes, the technique will allow you to sell more and get higher fees. But if you make that mindset shift, if you consciously click that switch before you pick up the phone, click that switch before you send the email, it will put you in a very different place. And from that different place, you're able to help people more, close more, and earn more. All the difference in the world. If you've got questions about this, I'm sure you probably do, you can ask them down in the comments below and I will reply directly there. I'll reply personally to all the comments. Alternatively, you can connect with me on either LinkedIn or on Instagram, and I will reply directly there if you want to DM me and get into things a bit more confidentially. Please, if you've enjoyed this video, hit the like, hit the subscribe and the notification bell so you never miss out on all the recruitery goodness. I'll see you again next time. Go out there and help people, because that will help you.